Ole Miss versus South Carolina kicks off in just a couple of hours, and this will be a November that you remember for the rest of your life. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We're going to bring in Mike Huesmann from SEC After Dark, Offseason After Dark. We're going to talk about this Ole Miss South Carolina game and why this day so far has gone absolutely perfectly for Ole Miss. Thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen, and please give us a like, subscribe, and a comment on your way out. Check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college and pro, is available. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant, because pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda Move and Be Moved. All right, Mike, it's really interesting. The early and mid games of this day, it has fallen exactly perfect for Ole Miss. Ole Miss is having a fantastic day. If they get past the South Carolina Gamecocks tonight, they should be sitting in pretty good shape.
Certainly. And, it's something conceptually we talked about last year and then this year. The talk around this time of year is, what about all these 1- and 2-loss teams, and, who's going to get left out? There was a lot of ball to play. There's not going to be that many teams with 1 or 2 losses come the end of the year. And we saw today the Miami Hurricanes lost, Vandy lost, Louisville might lose, and Georgia is not looking great. I mean, we're in a situation now where Texas, Georgia next week could be an elimination game for the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's not that Florida is playing great. That's not the thing that's happening in this ball game. You have a situation that Georgia is playing typical first half Georgia, so we have to wait to the second half to see what happens there. But right now, the Florida defense is matching up very well with the offensive game plan of Georgia. And I'm telling you, if Georgia gets to 2 losses, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, because in the end, I think Georgia Tech's going to get them personally.
They certainly could. This is the best team they've had. I was going to say since Paul Johnson. This might be the best team they've had since the early 90s when they were co-national champs the one year. It's been a while since Tech has been this solid. And that team, decent matchup for Georgia, but a lot of the narrative around the SEC people and, regarding, Pavi as a Heisman contender, look at how much he's pulling Vandy up and so on. Haynes King is doing that at Georgia Tech, only they're not losing games.
Yeah, Mendoza's doing it in Indiana. It's kind of funny that Indiana, Georgia Tech, Vanderbilt, and Ole Miss, they're all top 10 teams right now, but everybody wants to tell you what's a good job when all of those schools are sitting in the top 10. And it's like, I don't think you understand what football is now. You're relying on 2008. Tim Tebow is not going to walk through that door.
And you had brought up this point earlier in the week too. If you are a coach at one of those schools and you stay at that school, you clean up in the portal this winter with those schools.
Yeah. If Lane Kiffin decides to stay at Ole Miss when all this is said and done, there's a chance that he just absolutely 2024 cleans up in the transfer portal.
The guy I want to see Ole Miss next year, Mike Washington would be a fantastic fit in that offense at Arkansas.
Yeah, well, I'm watching Mike Washington right now against Mississippi State, and that's a sneaky good football game, by the way, if anybody's just trying to kill some time. It's 7-7 in the second quarter. Arkansas is about to try a field goal to go up by 3. But, Mike Washington, I was really impressed with him in the game with Ole Miss earlier this season. He's a really good little running back. Hey, just so everybody knows, the third segment of this show, about 15 minutes from now, will be your comments in the thread. But do me a favor, put where you're commenting from. So when we read your comment questions and things like that, either in the pregame and the postgame or any of the live streams that are coming up. That way we can give you a shout out from your hometown. Just full disclosure to everybody, Mike Huesmann's a Gamecock. He is. He's a Gamecock. He is going to be rooting for Shane Beamer to put it together. So what's the South Carolina mentality going in?
I mean, I was trying to conceptualize this earlier today, and it's the things you've been really bad at, which are very important. You can't be so bad at them today. They've not been good running the ball. They're ranked lower than 100. They're also really bad at throwing the ball. They're ranked right around 100. And two other more deep factors, I was looking at, they're one of the worst teams at time of possession. They are also ranked below 100. And they are the fourth most penalized team in the country. That is not a recipe for beating a team like Ole Miss. You have to be at least serviceable in both phases on offense, unless by some miracle Sellers can make big plays. But you have to keep the ball more. You can't get as many penalties. One area they're really good at is on special teams, especially in the punt return game. You got to force Ole Miss to punt to do that. And Ole Miss, A, hasn't punted a ton. B, it might be tough for the Gamecocks to force them to do that the way they've been playing. Because one thing on D they're pretty good at is getting sacks. Ole Miss isn't allowing tackles for loss, let alone sacks. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah, Trinidad Chambliss coming in there, it's like the offensive line got fixed whenever he came into the lineup. I'm not saying the offensive line got better. They just happened to probably gel at the same time as Trinidad being inserted. But there is a lot of football being played factor with Trinidad Chambliss, and going through a playoff run for multiple years at Ferris State in Michigan. This time a year ago, it was Jackson Dart trying to, will his way into the playoffs. He didn't know how to do it. He hadn't seen it. He didn't know it worked, but he was hoping to get to the playoff. Trinidad Chambliss knows how to get to the playoff. And I honestly think that for Ole Miss right now, in this moment, Trinidad Chambliss is a better fit for the Ole Miss offense than even Jackson Dart. And that's coming from somebody that was basically his hype man for 3 years.
Couldn't agree with you more, Steve. And I'm always one of those people who I will admit when I pivot or I say something or believe something that I preach against. My thought process has basically always been, if you're the starter and you didn't do anything to lose your job other than get injured, when you become healthy, you should get your job back. I don't feel that way right now with Ole Miss. I don't think you can take Trinidad Chambliss out of the lineup because of how well he's gelling with everybody else. You risk, even Simmons being a good player, the other 10 guys on your offense might take a step back. I don't think you can take that chance at this point.
All right, the name that is on the availability report for Ole Miss is Antonio Kite. I think he was listed as questionable on Friday nights. The rumor is he's kind of on the wrong side of questionable, but from what I'm hearing inside the Manning Center right now, Antonio Kite is going to have a workout and try to find a way to go against the South Carolina Gamecocks. Whenever you have a couple of explosive guys on the outside, and that's how the Gamecocks can hurt you with the explosive plays from time to time. I think Antonio Kite, if he can go, that's a boon for the defense. If not, is it Chris Graves? Is it Ricky Fletcher? Is it even Cedric Beavers? The defense, it could look a little bit different against the Gamecocks, but when you're going up against a team that is as difficult stopping the run as they are, and along with their lack of ability to run the football as well, I think, honestly, Mike, this is a Kejuan Lacey breakout game potentially. I think this is one that you see the box score after the game, and it's like, oh, he ran for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
It could be, certainly, especially, in talking about the numbers and figures I was talking about before. I expect Ole Miss to A, be up, and B, have the ball a lot. That almost always means you're running the ball a ton in the second half. And you talked about Kite with the availability report. In a game where you look to win and be the heavy favorites, I think if I was Lane, it would be a break glass in case of emergency. I don't know that I risk playing a guy right now who, even if he's not 100%, Nick Harbor's a bad matchup for a guy that's not healthy. So I might get a healthy body in there, and you put in Kite if you have to. Otherwise, you hope you can get through today without him.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Anyway, when we come back, we'll continue to talk about this football game. That's really the only note that I had about Antonio Kite coming up. But we'll talk, I guess, coaching search potentially. I've got some thoughts on that, and then we'll talk about the other games and your comments coming up in the third segment with me and Mike Huesmann coming up right after this. This game is brought to you by – wait, I need to run that real quick. This game is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, culture, help keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward last week against Oklahoma was Winnie Watkins making big catch after big catch en route to SEC Freshman of the Week and putting Ole Miss in a prime position to close absolutely strong. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to, and give it a 5-star review. It costs nothing but keeps all of this free. Locked On is getting ready to change the game yet again, all in the name of having fun following your team. It's coming in December, and don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. All right, Mike, one thing that's interesting, and I see some Ole Miss fans, and there's going to be fans that are always waiting for the other shoe to fall. I get that. Yeah. They're the type of fans that would get $10,000 in a brown paper sack, and they would complain about the sack. It's those guys. My advice to the fan base and anybody that is watching or listening to this is do everything you can to win these next 4 games, because I've been telling everybody next year is here, and it is imperative that the team does everything, the coaches do everything, that the fans do everything that they can to make this November successful. If a coaching search happens in January or February, it happens. You can't control that. That's a hypothetical. But what you can control is the next 30 days, and that needs to be paramount, in my opinion, to every Ole Miss fan.
I think so, especially after last year, which was disappointing by preseason standards. Ole Miss should have been a playoff team last year. It was disappointing they were not. They lost 2 games, Florida, Kentucky. They should not have lost. How that team wasn't a playoff team is still kind of a mystery to me. So, like you said, you can't take anything for granted. I don't think they are, but you got to play these last 4 games. Like getting into the playoffs depends on it. And I think they will. And I do think they will be a playoff team if they handle their own business. On paper, they should win all of the last 4. And then you're likely playing in the SEC title game. And at that point, win or lose, you're in the playoffs, regardless of what happens in that game.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting, like this Georgia-Florida game, Georgia's just playing terrible. Arkansas is handling business against Mississippi State as far as the 2 games that are going on right now. But Georgia losing a game, all of a sudden, in my opinion, it puts the SEC championship game on the table for Ole Miss.
It does.
If Georgia loses to Florida. Now, it also means that you're not going to overlook the Florida Gators when they come into Oxford. I mean, this is a supremely talented football team with guys that can make you hurt. When you overlook them, they get problematic. So if you handle them with the, I don't know, expectation that they're going to be pretty good, you should be in pretty good shape.
And Texas winning today eliminates Vandy from that consideration, but it keeps Texas in it. I mean, they are now they're still in the running for the SEC title game because they only have the one conference left. That Ohio State game, playoff-wise, it matters. Doesn't matter for that SEC title game. So they're in the mix. We're in a situation where, like last year, there's a chance that the A&M Texas game has an SEC title game spot riding on it.
And if it does, that means that Texas beat Georgia. And
yes.
There's a lot of elimination games that are potentially coming up over the next couple of weeks.
All kinds of them. Yeah.
Should be pretty interesting to see. You look at the games that are happening, that Vandy game, that Texas Vandy game was weird. I thought Arch Manning played well, by the way. And Sark did a really good job. He did a good job with his quarterback at a way that he hasn't done a good job with his quarterback before now, with a bunch of hitches and easy throws to kind of get him going. And by the end, he was making big time throws in that game. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Vandy secondary is kind of overmatched. Their front seven, their lines, they're in pretty good shape, but the back end of that defense can be gotten. And that's what Sark basically attacked through formation and what they were doing.
I mean, that first play of the game with the touchdown is a great example of that, where you give Arch a high percentage throw and you let Ryan Wingo be an athlete, and he went down the chute and got a 75-yard touchdown.
Yeah. And if you watch this Georgia-Florida game, there's no reason to think that they can't do the same thing to the Georgia Bulldogs next week, even though it is in Athens.
I agree. Yeah. You talk about Arch, the first 5 games he was not good. The last 3, he has played quite well. He hadn't started he's played a little bit last year, but he hadn't been a full-time starter in multiple years since high school, where his competition was not great. Maybe he just needed some games under his belt to be that guy, and we're seeing it now.
Yeah. The one thing I will say about Arch, he might be the least likable Manning to come out. He kind of has like the swag and the yell at it. There's the picture with him standing over the Sam Houston guy. He does some stuff that's very unmanning-like, and I think that works against him from time to time.
Is that only because he's a Manning, though? I mean, he's far tamer than Diego Pavia is, and a lot of people love him.
Yeah, I think it is because he's a Manning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, when we come back, we will take your questions on this pregame show as Ole Miss gets ready to take on South Carolina at 7 o'clock Eastern tonight on ESPN. Hang around. We'll come back and talk about all of that. Mike Huesmann coming up after the break. It's almost the weekend. Well, it is the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving money each and every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Now, let's break it down. For the Ole Miss Rebels, Trinidad Chambliss delivered in a big way. This is a defense in Oklahoma that prior to this game had given up a maximum of 220 yards. Chambliss threw for over 300, hitting big explosive pass after big explosive pass. When the pressure was on, he came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance is not a fluke. Trinidad Chambliss is on a streak. He's on an elite streak. So order this Saturday and keep your streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period runs through 11/18. And the NBA is back, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel actually has live bets to allow you to bet on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine those live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It helps keep the game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Mike. So let's go into the comment section and take some questions of what's going on. We got John Daniel says, hotty toddy. I wish our defense played the way they did last week against Georgia. All we needed was 1 or 2 stops to win that game. 1 4th and 2 stops, and you beat the Georgia Bulldogs.
Well,
That's it. 1/4. You're a 1/4 and 2 away from being 8-0. As bad as the defense played, and if they meet again, there's two things that you need to remember, John. You're not going to have to play them in Athens, so that's not going to be a problem. And B, that performance by the defense, you are not going to see that again. So I think it would be a different game should the two play again.
I also think John Mateer is mostly back to right now. That Oklahoma team's a different animal with him in there. They're pretty salty when he's playing well.
Yeah, I think Mateer has a chance. Ole Miss fans should root for Oklahoma against Tennessee tonight. Yes. Go ahead and eliminate the Tennessee Vols from the playoffs because I do think Tennessee takes out Vandy. You want to eliminate as many two-loss teams as you can and as many one-loss teams in other leagues as you can. That's kind of the goal of what's going on.
And we may have spoken too early since we've been on here. Louisville has scored 2 touchdowns and they're leading that game now.
Okay. Mississippi State struggling defensively. Arkansas's offense going. Georgia kicked a field goal right at the end of the second half. 12 seconds left. It's 10-10 right now. Chris Thomas says, "How are we feeling?" I feel pretty good, honestly. I think this is honestly. We have Mr. Gamecock in here right now. But I think this is kind of a let go of the rope game for the South Carolina Gamecocks after what happened to them a week ago. I mean, I don't know how you get back up after what happened.
I think they will be better the rest of the season than they've been the last month, which is a very low bar because they've been so bad. I don't think going on the road at a top 10 team, though, today is where that ship gets righted and they start winning games. So you're right about that. Yeah.
James York says HYDR from Vicksburg. Let's go. Mary Ronaldin says we're watching the Arkansas State game and Arkansas just went up 10-7 and they're currently driving as we speak right now. The Georgia Florida game is 10-10. Hey, you got a fan, Mary, says Mike, you rock. So that's pretty awesome.
I appreciate it.
So Stephen Waldrop says, what makes this a statement win for Ole Miss? ? Lacey having a big game. Can the defense show up like last week? South Carolina played well against Alabama. I don't think you need a statement win.
You don't. I was going to say, you don't. The way the standings are lining up, you just got to win. How you do it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you win by 1 point or 40 points, just as long as a W at the end of the day. I know you want an easy win. You want a stress-free win, but if you think about it, this Ole Miss team isn't built that way. It's just one score win after one score win after one score win. And I don't know that a blowout is particularly coming. Now, it could be a situation that South Carolina completely lets go of the rope. I think Dylan Stewart was on the availability report and was questionable for South Carolina. If he doesn't play, things become a problem for that defensive line. So I don't know that you need a statement win, honestly. Larry Fletcher says, Ole Miss 34, South Carolina 13. Stephen, you're the best from Panama City, Florida. Thank you. I think I am the best, honestly. No, I'm just kidding. But that's pretty close. I predicted 31-10 as the final score. What do you think this is going to end up at, Mike?
Honestly, I'd probably say 27-10, 30-13, somewhere in that range. Yes, I'll go 27-10, just because I don't have a lot of faith the Gamecocks get multiple touchdowns.
Yeah, offensively, man, I feel bad for Gamecock fans and anybody that's listening to this show. I genuinely feel bad for Gamecocks fans because when you look at the struggles that they had offensively coming into this season, everybody talked about Lenore Sellers and how everything was going to look. And one thing that I brought up was Mike Shula, the offensive coordinator. And the only example that you had of Mike Shula as Lenore Sellers' offensive game plan, game manager, was as the offensive coordinator against Illinois in the Citrus Bowl. And in that game, South Carolina's offense got shut down. And one after the other did that this year. I think I saw somewhere that this year they don't have a game where they had more than 350 yards.
Yeah, that sounds accurate. I don't know the specifics of that. I would believe that.
Ronald Mathis says Bama had played 4 straight ranked teams entering that game. It was a trap game. I believe that. Honestly, I'm all about that. And King on the Throne says South Carolina has lost to teams that lost a lot worse. That's a lot worse than Ole Miss. Yeah, I think their one SEC win was against the Kentucky Wildcats.
They've lost 5. And at the time, Vandy was the only non-ranked team, and they're now ranked decently high. So, I mean, their losses are Vandy, Mizzou, LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama. So,
okay,
they haven't lost anybody too bad.
Okay. Looking at this, King on the Throne says even if South Carolina played good, can they keep up with the Ole Miss offense? That's the question. I mean, the defense for Ole Miss has to have an Arkansas or a Georgia type game against South Carolina, because I do think Ole Miss is going to score. Now, there's a chance, and this happens from time to time. We saw this a couple of times last year where Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr.'s and those guys just got a little bit too cute with what they wanted to try to do. I don't know that you have to be cute in this game. I think you can bludgeon potentially South Carolina if you want to. You can force
You
it.
don't need to purposely work in Austin Simmons on random plays early like they've been trying to do. I don't think that helps you accomplish anything.
No, that doesn't help you at all, honestly. So somebody says, Stephen Waldrop says, I want this game over at halftime. The last few weeks have been hard. I'm telling you, this team is built to where it's going to be close regardless. But this Ole Miss team, you always talk about teams that don't know how to win games. This Ole Miss team knows how to win a game. And a lot of that, I think, happens from Trinidad Chambliss, honestly. You know, that mentality, that leadership in the locker room, I think that's a big moment. Arkansas just had a big play down the field. They got 5 seconds left in the first half. So it's either a field goal or they take a shot in the end zone, but they may be too far away to do that. But they completed a pass for.
Stephen Wallop can spare me that his last few weeks have been hard. Try living in my world, man. We've won 1 of the last 6 games.
Ronald Mathis says Florida's going to be fired up to beat Kiffin. Florida's not going to be fired up to do anything. And in 3 weeks, once the newness of having an interim wears off, and if they lose this game to the Georgia Bulldogs, you see how it looks like. You never want to be the first game against an interim coach.
No.
You never want to do that. But you have no problem being the third game with an interim coach. So,
I mean, LSU Bama is an interesting game next week because of that factor. Mm-hmm. In some ways.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I know Frank Wilson. Frank Wilson had an office right down the hall from me for multiple years. And I mean, he's a decent enough guy, but I don't know that they're going to get it off. Stephen Waldrop also says, I think Kiffin waits until that game to say he's staying at Ole Miss. At least I hope. Lane Kiffin's not going to say anything until after the season's over. He refuses to talk about this stuff while the season's going on. And if you look at the players that they have, it's not a situation to where you get yourself in trouble or he's distracted. Like John Summerall against UTSA, that looked like a coach that had one foot out the door.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin, nothing about this Ole Miss football team right now is showing 1 foot out the door. So I think lean on that.
And if I'm Lane, I don't know if you ever announce, air quotes, that you're staying. You just stay and go on with your day-to-day job, baby.
Yeah. And just remember, whenever somebody announces that they're staying, let's say, okay, for instance, Matt Rule announced his extension with Nebraska. And everybody's like, well, he's off the table. He signed an extension. Why? His buyout went from $5 million to $10 million. He could leave tomorrow. Just like, just because he signed a piece of paper doesn't mean that's not true. But everybody wants it to be a final thing, and Lane Kiffin's just avoiding that scenario, in my opinion.
The other guy who signed an extension yesterday, and this is relevant to the Arkansas fans, Rhett Lashley did sign an extension at SMU yesterday. So,
Ron Mathis, need to win out, not guaranteed to get in the playoffs with 2 losses. Yes, you are.
Yes, you
whenever
are.
Whenever you look at things right now, you're like, well, like 6 teams could be 10-2 in the SEC. 6 teams are not going to be 10-2 in the SEC. when it's all said and done. There's a lot of football left to be played. There's going to be people taking some L's over and over. But right now it looks like, hey, if all these teams win every game, it could be problematic. And that's true that there's a path, but that's not going to happen, honestly. So, Mike, what do you got going on today? You going to be nervous?
I hate to say it, no, because I'm kind of in that purgatory of, oh, this is happening again. Like if things don't go well for the Gamecocks. So my expectations are not high today, to say the least. My mindset at this point is I just want to beat Clemson after Thanksgiving.
All right. Enjoy the game tonight, and enjoy whatever you have going on. And thanks to everybody for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. You don't believe me, Google Ole Miss podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it's absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. But for your second listen, check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy breaks down the best conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hotty toddy, everybody. Remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you later.